Just wait for a few people coming on.
I'll go and share it first.
Yeah. I think they forgot all about us.
I think
Yeah, it's 17 now. Let's wait a couple more come on and we'll be away.
Yeah, no worries. What I will say, Brian, is while we're on,
Yes.
just because of the nature of the subject and stuff that we've been touching upon recently, if you can put a big shout out to the supportline.org.uk. So they're set up to help any victims of sexual abuse or assault. And they can be contacted directly on 01708 765 200. That's 01708 765 200. And they're set up a charity and support line for victims of sexual abuse and assault.
Yeah. Right, we're going to get on with the show now then. So it's me, Brian Cockrell, aka the Taxman. We're on the Taxman Show with my friend John McLean, Criminal Underworld, is his YouTube channel. John, welcome to the show, mate.
Cheers, Brian. Thanks for having me, mate.
John, we're going to talk about Dickies tonight. There's nobody better to talk about this man than you. There's the rumours all over the place, but you're the man who knows everything that's gone on. Can we just go back to how you first met and how you got integrated with him and became his business partner?
Yeah. So basically, cut long story short, Brian, I seen the initial start of his podcast back in September last year. Yeah. He'd done a couple of small podcasts up in Scotland, and I reached out to him, and because I do sales and marketing, and said, I can assist if it's something that he's interested in, something to look into, and that, it's an opportunity for me as well to develop a podcast, particularly as we were at the peak of lockdown and podcasts being developed and, coming up.
Yeah.
For me to use basically a brand to advertise my own business brands on the back of as well.
Well, so what is your business then, John?
Sales. My business was sales and marketing. Relentless Media basically is the company I now run.
So that's filming, and you do a lot of filming and documentaries.
Yeah, filming, sales, marketing, social media marketing, the analysis of the algorithms of the social media, sales and marketing, and how to sort of, if you like, pitch and interact with audience on social media to increase engagement.
Right. So when was the first time the alarm bell started ringing about Decker? Anything in his make? Because I've seen you speaking to him on the podcast where he's screaming at him, shouting, and the next minute he's going, "Oh, I'm sorry about that, mate. I'm really sorry." I thought that's like not the man. He's up and down like psychotic.
The first alarm bells for me, initially when I first started working with him, I did get approached by sort of like fake accounts. They were fake accounts. I don't know who was behind them, but they were fake accounts, basically saying that he was a nonce, he was a paedophile, he was a sex offender. I never took any interest in it because they were fake accounts. So I'll be honest, those fake accounts, they add and support to his narrative of he's being trolled, he's being abused by trolls. So obviously I made some inquiries, seen a copy of this basic DBS that he provides online. His brother showed me a copy of a closed law letter, which I now know is a non-disclosure.
Can I just explain what this means, the Clare's Law, the Sarah's Law, for the people who don't understand it?
Yeah. So the Clare's Law is to do with domestic violence.
Right.
So if, for instance, as an example, Emma started to date you, Brian, what she would be able to do is contact the local authorities to say, does Brian have a history of domestic violence or concern that I should be aware of? The Sarah's Law is to do with the Sarah's Payne murder. to find out whether somebody is deemed a risk to children. And that might be somebody that has a close interaction with the child. It could be a neighbour, it could be a family member, it could be somebody that visits the property frequently that will have some form of engagement. And only the people who the police deem are sufficient to safeguard the children will actually be disclosed of what that person is. And so his brother had what's called a Clare's Law non-disclosure letter. And the way it's worded on this non-disclosure is it's worded in a way which makes you think that there isn't anything to disclose.
Right.
When actual fact, it's the fact that the authorities or the police force that's given that letter have decided not to disclose any information on that particular subject or that person. So I'll be honest, I didn't know much about the system at that point. So I was looking at it thinking, right, okay, nothing to disclose. That's great. There's nothing there. And then spoke to a retired police officer who actually runs the boxing club up in Montrose.
Yeah.
He explained to me that he was aware of all the online allegations and abuse that Decker had got, and assured me that it was all nonsense. He was one of the child welfare officers at the boxing club and had checked Decker out also because of the nature of the allegations, and it had all come back correct and fine.
Right.
Now, I believe that person has subsequently said it to a number of other people and then more recently backtracked. And I won't point the finger or name names, and I won't name the boxing club, but I can tell you for a matter of fact, because I remember doing it and I remember making sure I made reference to it, is he said to me at the time, look, if you go onto our boxing club social media pages, you'll be able to see there's actually pictures of Decker training with the under-16s.
Right.
And I went on, looked at the Facebook page, lo and behold, pictures are there. So you're thinking, right, it's got this basic DBS, it's got this Clare's Law non-disclosure, and you've got this police officer who's also a child welfare officer for a youth club, basically, telling me everything's great.
And so
I ignored it.
you really believed him, and so did everyone else, because these people in authority or ex-people in authority are telling you think, oh, he's done everything right. So you were still backing him up at this time. Yeah,
absolutely. So I first worked with him at the very end of August last year. We did a series of about 8 podcasts over 2.5 days. It's where we recorded Big Joe Egan on Decker's birthday and stuff as well. So again, didn't think much of it, nothing like that. Just dismissed it as trolling. And then it became more and more apparent that there was an issue with this Tony Burkett. This Burkett, he was a prolific troll. He'd done this, he'd done that, he'd done this. And what happened was Derek rang him after instigating a police case against Tony, and he'd recorded the calls with Tony.
Right.
And that's when my first concerns around, this doesn't feel right. What's this all about? Because he recorded Tony and then asked me to edit the calls.
In what way?
Edit the call so it made Tony sound like that he was deemed a sex pest or a rapist. Because the way that he'd loaded the questions.
Right.
I refused to edit the calls and simply said, I'm not going to detriment your case with the police. That's stupid. I'm going to send those onto the coppers so that they've got those call recordings as part of the evidence. And I left it at that. I even actually got into an argument with Tony at that point as well. Because Tony had been in contact, and I then contacted Tony and was like, well, show me some proof. Just like a lot of people have done, show me some proof, show me the evidence. Because, Brian, I didn't know the processes. And this is where a lot of this that falls down for people is It's lack of education and awareness. People are not educated or aware of the fact that, you know, if you get a Sarah's Law or a Clare's Law disclosure,
Right.
it's done verbally.
Right.
It's done. So they come and they'll sit with you. Or in COVID, they did make exceptions. So they did a lot of those type of disclosures over the phone due to the COVID situation. But what they will do is they come, they sit with you, they come with the report. You can read the report.
Right.
You then sign that you've read it. And, you know, you agree basically to keep it confidential.
So I
The
presume,
reason that
I presume they don't give you the paperwork, so you can't show the paperwork to people. So
they don't give it you. No, they take the paperwork back with them.
Right.
They take it back with them. What I've got, obviously, since then is a series of emails and correspondence with the police raising certain points and trying to address things, because I needed to make sure that I was completely understanding what it was, because at some point, Decca was also saying to me, it's rubbish, the police are telling you the wrong things. And one of the biggest flags and questions that I then highlighted with the police, and I did that following up in an email, was when he went on to Steve Rafe's podcast show.
Yes.
And this Barry Mitchum from this paedophile hunting group turned up and said that he didn't have any active investigations against him.
Right.
And I went back and challenged the police on the back of it and said, look, if I've actually said this person is deemed of significant risk to women and children based on the information you've given me, and it's not factually correct, then that's bang out of order, and that's completely wrong.
Yeah.
I need you to be able to confirm that it's correct and it's accurate. And, you know, the police came back and confirmed it's correct and accurate. The only reason, obviously, I've spoke out about the disclosure is because it's become more and more apparent what's gone on. And
Right.
for me, I want people who have been victims, if they haven't ever spoken to somebody, to feel that they do have a voice and they can come forward and know that people will believe them. And I don't mean coming on talking to me and you on a social media platform. I mean going to the right authorities and giving the story into the police so it can be investigated. Now, if it's NFA'd, it's NFA'd. You know, that's out of our control. But at least it's encouraging them to come forward.
Yeah.
Plus, the other reason was I came forward because you've got to bear in mind, for a number of months, I didn't have a social media presence. I came off social media because I wasn't willing to get into a spat with him or tit for tat social media disputes. It was after he continuously went out publicly saying that I was actually deemed a risk to women myself. So I've got the screenshots, I've got the messages. He's actually gone on his own platform and said that I physically abuse women.
Yeah.
And
absolute rubbish.
It's absolute
rubbish.
rubbish.
They want to people when they trap these people, they reverse the psychology back to the person who's saying it and try to deflect.
Absolutely.
They pretend they're getting trolls and they're trolling themselves. I know some trolls, but not so far from us. He trolls himself and tell, look at these, they're saying about me, look at this, and tries to get people feeling sympathy for him. I think Decca does the same sort of thing.
Well, do you know what? If you don't mind, can we touch on that a minute?
Yeah, of course.
Do you remember while we're talking about Deflection? In April, no, sorry, it was the beginning of May. Decca went live. He went live with another individual and they exposed what Decca claims was a serial woman abuser. And this was Ian Flannery, aka King Irish.
Right.
You know the lad I'm on about.
Yeah, he's not a bad lad.
Yeah. So before they did that, I said to Decca, I said, look, I'm not being funny, but you've got all these people saying these things about you. You need to be fucking sure, mate,
100%.
that what you're going to go out publicly and say about King Irish is true, and you need the evidence to say it's true. Now, on that live, they never showed any evidence. Yes, I believe, there was women that came on and spoke, but if it was me at the time when I was working on it, I would never have gone live that day without checking them women's stories out first.
Yeah.
To authenticate and do some due diligence to say, yes, what these women are coming out to say is accurate and correct.
Yeah.
And therefore, what they say about King Irish, spot on, fine, no problem, put it out. But there wasn't any checks. There was no due diligence done.
Yeah.
Decker was saying, I've seen the evidence. It's in fuck all, Brian.
No,
And I mean,
tangible evidence. You need to have proof, because you could ruin someone's life by saying something like this, because people throw mud at a wall and then some of it sticks.
Well, subsequently, since I've looked at it and I've dug a little bit deeper in the whole situation, is yes, I've seen documents that show King Irish is actually guilty of other offences.
Right.
I haven't seen any documentation which shows that he's guilty
Yeah.
of domestic violence or sexual abuse. None whatsoever. And I'm not saying that because of supporting me. It's just because we're talking about these whole deflection tactics.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I feel at the time, because this was coming to the point that we were really sort of boiling with each other in regards to the whole DBS check, you see.
Yeah.
I felt like that, looking back now, was a tactic that he'd taken to deflect the situation away from himself and all the blame onto King Irish.
Were you starting to get a little bit worried for you have got children? Were you starting to get that feeling, or was your missus or anything getting that feeling, saying, "Oh, we need to check this. It's getting a bit serious"?
Look, I won't lie. I won't lie. My missus fucking hated Derek from day one.
Right.
She'd say he's a fucking nuisance because I work, and just because I was doing the podcast, now bear in mind, I didn't earn a penny from that podcast.
Yes.
I didn't get paid for the work that he was supposed to pay me for. I didn't get the money back that he was supposed to pay me for. All the travel and everything came out of my own pocket because I was investing myself in that podcast to develop something that I believed in.
Right.
And, he'd ring me at fucking 7:45 in the morning about the podcast and be like, fucking hell, I've got to get the kids ready. I need to get the kids to school. Do you know what I mean? I haven't got time to talk to you for the next 2 hours about the podcast. I need to get to work myself. Do you know what I mean? And he would be constant. So it'd be stuff like that where my missus would be like, I fucking hate you working with him. And it wasn't because of any concern or vibe at that point. It was just because of, if you like, how full on he was.
Yeah.
And for her, that didn't sit comfortably.
Right. He did contact me about a year and a half, maybe a little bit longer ago, saying, "Would you walk me in the ring? Everyone's bullying me. I'll get you with me if you come in the ring." I felt really sorry for him. It was the day we were going to get, before my wife got married to me, and we were going to get a wedding dress in Northampton. I was sat outside. He was on the phone for 2 hours. He was crying, and then he started phoning me like 20, 30 times a day. I said, "Oh, I'm just busy." "Oh, what it is, bro, we'll do this and do that." And he was just like, like a little kid in the playground, want you to play with him all the time, and just like this narcissistic, "I've got this, I've done this, I'll get you in films, bro, I'll get you this, I'll get you that." And it was all just flannel to get him on your side, to integrate with him and make him think he was a great guy. But after a while, people phoning me up, because I was in jail with people in Haverick from Carlisle. I knew people from Newcastle where he'd been throughout the nightclubs for touching girls and stuff. I thought, all these people can't be wrong, and these are proper people. These I've known for years, 30 odd years, some of them. So that's when the alarm bells rang with me. So I just blocked him. I didn't get on with him, but it was actually the so-called author who did my book who said what he was to keep away from him. So we blocked him from then. So I know what you mean with phone calls non-stop all the time.
Yeah, I mean, if just finishing on the King Irish bit there, what amuses me when I look back at that situation was he went out and publicly criticised one of the other podcast channels. I don't know if you ever seen KRN.
No, I didn't see him, no.
Yeah, KRN, they did an interview with Dougie Joyce as well previously.
Yeah.
And they also did an interview with King Irish. and they went and advertised a second one. And when they advertised the second one, Decca went out and did a video saying, I can't believe they're promoting this scumbag after everything that's been said about him, what's been said and what he's done. You're going to do a second one. And you really did heavily criticize KRN for going out, doing it. But yet, for me, the ironic bit was he was hiding all these skeletons in his closet himself.
That was to get him off, thinking, oh, he's a good guy, he's getting these paedophiles, and he's like, even though King Irish has nothing to do with that, he's trying to make other people look what he is and get himself off. That's what they do, deflect it. Like you said, it's a psychological work. It's called mirror imaging, where they look at the mirror and they reverse it back to you.
Yeah.
He's a master of it. He's really good at getting people to integrate with him and get him on his side and puts the tears on, he cries. Well, he is an actor, isn't he? So,
yeah. So, you know, it's just from that, I look at it and think, like, you know, you've heard the disclosure call. I think a lot of people have heard that disclosure call, and the content of it. Now, I know the accuracy of that disclosure call, even though it wasn't with me, it was obviously with somebody else, that the information that was coming out in that call is correct. Hence the reason I was told what I was told about him being a significant risk.
And the reason, just to stop you, the reason why you can hear it is because the COVID, you couldn't go to the police station, so they had to give you the information on the phone, so it was recorded word for word off the policewoman, and the person was asked specifically, and said, it's not us, it's we are telling you it's a significant risk to children and women.
Yeah.
That was the police speaking on the phone live.
Yeah. That was on the call that we hear, and I won't mention the lady's name, but you know, you hear the call with the lady in question and the information that's told to her. I mean, for me,
and hats off to that lady for coming out and letting everyone know the truth. Yeah.
You know, for me, an allegation is an allegation.
Yeah.
I can only at the moment say that the pattern that those allegations show is probably some of the reason that he's deemed by the authorities to be that such risk.
Right. Yeah. But what annoys me sometimes, John, I'm not sticking up for anyone, but I'm one of these people, I'm fair down the middle. A lot of the things people are saying about Dickie aren't true. Just making things up. Oh, he's done this, he's done that, he's done this. And then that takes people to think, oh, if he's lying, she's lying, he's lying, why aren't the others lying? So then people are making stories up, but actually getting him off with the things. Well, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that I mentioned on Steve Rafe's podcast last night, is that the best thing I can ask for people at the moment is for everyone to take a step back and let the authorities now deal with the current issues. Yeah. You know, the historic issues, they're historic. We can't do anything about that. We're not going to change what went on with the NFAs. We're not. They've been NFA'd, you know, and under the statute of limitations, you know, there's going to be some of the NFAs that relate to the domestic violence, for example, that could never be reinvestigated or looked at. The sexual stuff possibly could be, but it's been too much widely broadcast in social media to not jeopardize those previous allegations being revisited. There's stuff that's obviously ongoing now that does need to be investigated, and that's where it will stop for me in terms of the conversation of what's happening. You know, he apparently has made contacts with Crime Scene NE this evening upon being released from the police station. Crime Scene NE has then put a statement out. That's wrong. Crime Scene NE shouldn't be putting a statement out on his behalf, because that could be indirectly seen as a way of trying to intimidate a witness.
Yeah.
Because it makes reference to some of the allegations that he's been in for questioning.
Yeah.
And while that's ongoing, you know, Crime Scene ME is actually committed an offence on behalf of Decca. because they put a video out while he says he's reading a statement out. He's actually reading a statement that under bail conditions shouldn't be made.
Yeah. Because that's for you. When I've been on bail, they say, there's your bail conditions. Any reference to any witnesses, intimidation whatsoever, speaking about the case, doing anything about the case, you can be brought back and will be charged, can't get remanded.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that because I'm not having a go at Gary over at crime scene. I've no issue with Gary whatsoever. You know, I gave him some information to find out himself. He chose not to follow up on it. That's his choice. That's his prerogative. However, the one thing I would urge Gary does is take that video down.
Yeah.
Because if the people that have got the allegations in that are being investigated feel like that video is a way of trying to coerce them into dropping the charges or intimidating them, then Gary's complicit in that. And I'm not saying he's done that intentionally, but the complicit nature of what he's done makes it an offence. And he might need to look at that and address that himself. He needs to think, whilst he is maybe reading a statement out, that statement is not something that he's made himself on his own platform. Why is that?
Yeah. Can you just, can we say, there's a lot of rumours he's been arrested for this and arrested for that. Can you mention anything, what you know he's been arrested for?
I can't.
We can't mention anything.
No,
right?
No. Just because there's a number of offences, I believe. That he's been obviously in investigated for or questioned.
Right. Some of them really serious. So, but I've been told that obviously I can't say myself some serious allegations, and that's why believe he was given 2 weeks bail to go back to the police station and not to be in that area. So he wouldn't be in that area where he was staying. But he obviously, there's rooms all over. He's been done for this, done for that. So
yeah. I mean, I don't know too much information about his bail, his conditions.
Yeah.
I'm just coming from my perspective of.
But was he arrested with the armed response was it a couple of nights ago? Was it Scotland? I think he was arrested.
Yeah, he was arrested because that was what was in the press article that he was in Scotland at the time.
Right, but there's a firearms officers that go somewhere like that. I've been arrested myself quite a few times by firearm police. They've got to think that you have a weapon or you have a firearm of something that's death check, because they would not turn up 6, 7, 8 handed with a firearms. They're called ARV, armed response vehicles, unless there was a firearm or a weapon involved to arrest you. They don't come in that type of. They would just come to a police up, knock on the door usually, but they come the firearms police. For me, there's got to be a firearm offence.
I mean, I'd be surmising or saying, that is what he's been arrested for. I genuinely, I couldn't say for certain.
The rest I've had before, and when they come for me, when they come with the firearms squad, it's obviously because you've got a firearm. They think you've got a firearm, or they're deemed that you've got a firearm, or somebody said you've got one. I'm not saying he has. Somebody might have just phoned up and said he's got one or whatever. They're going like that. They've gone in there with a firearm, treating it really seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought if,
I mean, people say he's charged for a driving offence. They wouldn't go in like that for a driving offence. Not in a million years.
I mean, you'll know that protocol better than I will, Brian. To be fair, do you know what I mean?
It's supposed to be he's getting arrested because he had a fight with Danny Chris 3 months ago, but they wouldn't go in like that either with firearms offence. Firearms officers for something like that in a fray or a fight, they wouldn't do it like that. So he's definitely something to do with firearms, in my opinion.
Yeah, Brian. In the comments, there's somebody called Salford Orsel. He's saying what he's typing, I know exactly is true. Salford Orsel, I'm not sure, mate, what it is that you're referring to. I'm sorry. unless I've missed the comment previously.
Quite a few questions.
Yeah, can we have a few questions?
I'll say a few questions so you can get back to it. I just go on to read questions. I have to take pictures.
I can't see any money, I see. So
Yeah, no, it's all right. Apparently, I've been paid with drug money. Is what he's saying on the chat.
Oh,
I've not been paid any money from nobody,
okay.
and that's a fact.
You're going to get that.
It's just a few questions, John. People are saying obviously he's lucky to be getting bailed if it's just a driving offence. I explained that Brian's been done for a driving offence before you were remanded, weren't you?
Yeah, remanded for failure to stop.
Let me have a look. White Preacher's saying he's proud of everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Who's had nothing to do with Decker.
Yeah, well said.
So Brian included. Let me have a look. Where's these questions? 2 secs. Minutes.
Well, I think someone's told me 100% he was given 2 weeks bail, and he had to leave the area. Had to go from out of Carlisle. Had to go because he was arrested there and taken to Carlisle with the courts, and he was bailed, and he had to leave that area and go somewhere else. So what they do, usually you get 4 weeks bail. So there must be a lot of information. Usually what they do, they'll keep you in for 24 hours and they'll ask for an extension for 36 hours. And they can ask for that for a couple of days. But after that, then they would have to let you go. So what they've done here, I think, is let him go while there's that much information, that much stuff on him. They're looking into it now, and they've got 2 weeks to do that, and then they'll come back. It's a very short bail.
Doodle, can the rumours interfere with the investigations if they keep circulating?
Not really.
Can the rumours interfere with the investigations if they keep circulating?
Not if they've got him for what they've got him for, because they'll have the evidence, you see. That's what they're doing, the due diligence now, checking everything everywhere to see whatever he's been pulled in for. He's been arrested, but he hasn't been charged. Right. That's what they do now. They'll go and check everything everywhere, all the sources, everyone saying anything.
Sooty Hunt has said, has Decker's ex-partner actually seen any paperwork of DH ever?
I can't comment on her behalf because.
It's on about you, John.
Say that, sorry.
He's asking if you've ever seen any paperwork on Decker.
Yes.
Yes, he has.
Yes, he has.
Did they come to your house, John?
Yeah.
So that's Sooty Hunt. Yes, he has. Let me have a look. Okay.
Sorry, I'm laughing because this.
Because after
this Salford also saying he'll put a recording up. About being paid. I have not been paid, so
this last looked out on the feast of Stephen. Yeah. That's a good one for you, mate. That'll be number 1 this week. Yeah, all you're doing, John, I've asked you to come on because you're a good guy. I've got on with you. Can I just go back to? Can we mention Anthony Bear, because I think he's a good guy.
Anthony's in the chat.
He's a really good guy. I love him a bit. He actually made statements against Anthony Decker Higgy to get him jail and tried to mess up. You can tell better because can you explain to people what he tried to do to get in prison?
Yeah, basically, there was obviously a number of statements made against Anthony Burkett. You know, Anthony knows my view on it was that I understand what Anthony was trying to do now better because I understand it myself more. But when you've got somebody that you don't know that approaches you and sends you this information on somebody, you automatically think, you know, I don't agree with that. Or this person is a troll, and it plays into the narrative a little bit. But actually what Anthony was trying to do was raise awareness and make people aware of what this person was about.
Did he raise awareness for you when you seen the photographic evidence sent to your kids or something? Or the train one?
No, it was. I don't know to this day who sent the photograph. Do you know what I mean? I don't know to this day who sent the photograph.
When you seen that video of him on the train, did that ring alarm bells? Sorry for the punch. It wasn't so much that, it was the concern that obviously my ex-partner had at the same time as well about the fact that it had been received by a minor. And I get it completely. I think
in fairness to Decker, I don't think he sent it.
Right.
I certainly hope he didn't. However, what I think was my son, because he was following the page, he was probably one of many that received it. So whoever done it had literally gone down, looked at who'd liked the posts and sent it to a number of people, because there was always a number of people that would say, oh, we've got this person sending information, or I've just been receiving this. And I think that's what happened on my son's account more than anything. I don't think whoever sent it
well, that was the main reason. That was the main reason. I thought, as soon as I seen him on the train, doing masturbating with himself and looking in the mirror, videoing himself and sending it back to the people where there was kids and men and women on the train, I thought, you're not right, you're not wired up. No normal person does something like that.
We actually interrupt you. We actually have numerous people suggesting that the actual person himself is on the channel under a different name.
Yeah, we know that. That's probably him from Southport. I was putting it up. Yeah, you can probably welcome to the show, Decker. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, when was it you, John? You thought that's it? Because you were still believing him. Because I think I believe that you offered him some money, $4 grand or something, to go to Bora Bora because he wanted to go on the beach. So you said, why don't you prove to everyone?
No. What it was is these people approached and said that they wanted to sponsor the channel on the condition that he did that enhanced DBS.
Right.
So I said, right, okay. I'll speak to him. And I actually said to him, I said, look, I don't want the $4 grand. I'll even pay for the DBS check to be done because it'll benefit me with everything that's just gone on with my son and the account. You keep it, and you say you want to go on holiday. You've always wanted to go to Bora Bora. Take yourself away, and then when you get there, do yourself a video on the beach and thank the trolls for the fact that they've just literally paid for your holiday. And that's what it was. And obviously he refused that. And
did he tell you what he refused it?
For me, it was never about money.
Right.
The check, I didn't, for me, even expect, when I offered to pay for the check, even without these people saying, oh, we'll sponsor the channel, here's the money that we'll sponsor the channel with. I didn't think for 1 second that he would kick off by me offering to get the check done so that I had it for my own, obviously, peace of mind from a safeguarding perspective.
Yeah. So even then, you still believed him, but obviously we got blamed for being a troll from the author of so-called Teesside author, me and my wife. 2 years of evidence, and he said he got on us. And so if anybody blames me or something like that, I'll go straight down the police station. Go right. I'm banding myself in now. Me and my wife went. We were in there 20 minutes, and no further action did. So I said to Decker on when he was talking, I left a message saying to him, if you've got nothing to hide, go down the police station, take a brief with you, go in there, get a DBS check, which is the Sarah's law, an enhanced one, get it done, get it outside, get the newspapers there, get people with cameras there, even if you've got a local radio show, and get your solicitor to read it out properly, get a letter off the police to prove you've done nothing wrong. So simple, isn't it? So simple.
Yeah, I mean, people will say, right, why did you work with him for 6 months? Because ultimately, until I actually got the disclosure in September, I didn't know the truth.
Yeah.
I didn't know the truth.
Well, look at Jimmy Sample, all them years at the BBC and everything. They conned everyone.
I didn't know, I didn't know the truth. Yeah, don't get me wrong. Do I think the whole train video thing was weird and inappropriate? Yeah, I do. And I told him that when I worked with him. I went, what did you ever do that for? I mean, I couldn't get my head around that. And I said that to him. Yeah. But, that's his choice. Did I have doubts about him? No. Did I think he was a wrong'un or a nonce to begin with, that or that he'd done something to a child. No, because I would never have worked with him, and I would never have had him around me or my family, given the fact I work from home. You know, why would I put and subject my family to risk if I was aware of his background?
Right.
However, had he told me about the allegations at the beginning, would I have carried on working with him? Probably not, because how can I work with somebody that I'm not sure or confident in has got a background of abuse and sexual abuse, which involves women and minors? You know, but I wasn't ever given an informed decision. I could only make the informed decision after the police give me the information.
Yes, you did.
That's when I was in a position. You know, so you've got to bear in mind, from June, I stopped working with him. So, you know, my son got this image at the end of sort of May, beginning of June time. And that's when I ceased my involvement with him, because obviously he refused to do the check. And a couple of times he'd asked me to come back, and I said to him, I'm not going to come back until I know everything's right. And he actually texts me and says, fuck you, take your passport to the police, go and do the checks, but you'll owe me an apology. And in fact, he says it in one of the recordings that got posted out. So when you do the checks, are you going to apologise? I went, I've got nothing to apologise for, because I hadn't said that he was a wrong'un. No. I hadn't accused him of anything. I just wanted to know that the person I was working with was safe to be around my children and around my family.
Yeah.
So for me, there was nothing to apologise for. However, you know, had the checks come back, I would have said, look, I'm sorry I had to do them, and I'm sorry if you felt like it was doubt, but as a father, I appreciate he isn't a parent, he's not a dad, but as a parent, you will try to understand why I did the checks and why I ceased my involvement.
What made me strange as well is, after all the allegations and all the screaming and shouting about all the stuff, he's doing a live podcast and his dad walks behind with no clothes on, live on the podcast. I just don't understand this. You know, the things they do are just like, it's like weird things he does.
I mean, I just don't get my head round why he would lie and then lie again to cover the first lie, but then lie again to cover that. Because in all honesty, he hasn't got the best of memories.
No.
And it'd be silly things that I'd end up arguing with him over. When it came to the editing of the podcast, for example, and we'd have an argument over the editing of the podcast, and he'd be like, "That's not what we agreed." And I'd be like, "Yeah, it is."
Yeah.
And he'd go, "No, I didn't. I said that." And then I'd go, "Hang on, go back through the message." "No, you didn't. This is what you said." Yeah. And I'd send him a copy of his own message back to him.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, "All right, yeah."
I remember him calling you once when I'd seen when he was screaming, he's going to kill you, he's going to stab you, he's going to do all this. And at the very end, you went, "Oh, I'm sorry, I went mad with you." Calm down from screaming like a lunatic to like,
yeah.
Sorry about that, mate. I'm really, did he do that same MO quite a lot?
Yeah, and that was I think the call that you're referring to, that was the point where I'd already said enough's enough. I'm not going to work with you. I'm not going to work with you until I know what the check is. And that's when the issues really arose between me and him, where he started to, you know, offer to fight with me. And like, the trust's gone completely now, because you're supposed to be somebody that has, you know, trust and respect with. But you want to fight me because I'm asking you to help me as your business partner make sure that my kids are safeguarded and giving my ex-partner peace of mind. And he'd say, "Well, you've seen my checks. Why aren't they good enough for you?" And I'd be like, "Well, hang on. It's not just me that you've got to satisfy. You need to satisfy my ex-partner as well, because she's not happy." Because you've got to bear in mind, she goes online and looks at some of the stuff and goes, "Wow, not really liking what I'm seeing, what I'm reading."
Yeah. Which any mother would.
Yeah.
Children. Yeah.
Yeah. And he'd say things like,
go on.
he'd say, I don't understand. What is it you're hiding? And I'd be like, what do you mean, hiding? And he'd be, you're hiding something because that's why your ex-partner doesn't believe you. She doesn't trust you. She clearly doesn't trust you. I'd be like, doesn't trust me.
Put it back onto you then, again.
Yeah. I'm like, fucking behave.
Yeah.
You know, me and my ex-partner, we don't argue. We get on well. We get on. There's no issues. Do you know what I mean? I can have a conversation with my ex-partner, make sure my lad's okay.
Yeah.
I phoned her today. Pick the phone up. Just need to double check what size, trainers my lad's in.
Yeah.
Because he's growing that bloody quick that I could buy him an 8 last month and he's in a 9 this month, sort of thing.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
So, Danny Christie, carry on. I've got to ask you about that, obviously, because it's one of the main things. Anthony Burkett worked with Decker for a while. He had his back 100%, looked after him and everything. But he had him hoodwinked, like he had me hoodwinked, and he had you hoodwinked, and most people hoodwinked. A lot of the fans out there know I don't lie. Never tell lies. I told all when I was on the crack, everything I've done, I've told people, tax people I was wrong. I don't tell lies, but he seemed to lie all the time. So Anthony fell out with him, and then he obviously went to the police. So Anthony got him locked up. Then Danny Christie pointed him out in the dock, grassed him up, got him in jail, and then when he got out, he's trying to have a fight with him. Well, I said to Danny, to Anthony to tell Danny, and I told Joe that night, I said if he has a fight with him, somebody will record it, and he'll probably try and get him a recall, and I think that's what's happened now with the fight. So even though I seen not that the gypsy lads were there, they haven't done that. Decker's dad had the camera, and I was saying, Anthony, to turn that camera off because he's going to use that camera because he's still on bail conditions to keep away from him, and he's enticed him into a fight. And I think that's what's happened now. A lot of it could be jealousy because Danny got the part in the Steve Rafe movie, The Sayers. So I think that spitefulness come out of him to try and block it. So he's been now charged, hasn't he, through Decker as well. So a lot of sneaking going on from Decker again. The man who's supposed to be a fighting man, who does everything with his hands, runs to the police every time there's an issue with someone who's a proper man.
For me, I'd have had a lot more respect and probably a lot less doubt, even had I not obviously been informed by the police as what he was, if he'd have probably been upfront and honest. I mean, you look at people who have been, subject to such allegations themselves, they deal with it. They'll openly speak about it. They'll speak about how it affected them, how actually being accused of something so horrendous affected them emotionally and mentally. Whereas he's never done that. He's just constantly lied about it. Yeah.
I think you said you've got to have a very good memory to lie. And he's not the sharpest tool in the box. So when he's talking, he tells you one story one day and 3 or 4. He did one of me. He was calling me out when I was in a wheelchair, and I'm not bothered about him and him and the so-called author from Stokes, like, calling me names and laughing at me because I was in a wheelchair, paralysed. But when I stood up for myself and got myself fitter again, he took the video down, said I was bullying him. And how can I bully anyone when I wasn't walking at the time? And I was trolling him, and I wasn't trolling him at all. I've never trolled anyone in my life. But that's the deflection. And I think the fight with Danny was a great flaw by Decker. To look over here, forget about what's going over here about the allegations of being a paedophile and rapist, whatever. Look at over here, we look at the fight. Everyone's looking at the fight, and because he had the fight, it seemed to have been all his fans stayed with him, oh, he's brilliant, he's had a fight, and all the little young lads, oh, he's great, but that was all deflection. In psychology, my mate's a top expert, Steve Norton, and you learn all this stuff, how people manipulate people. Just like you said, reading that statement out could be deemed as a threat to the people who've pressed charges against Decker. There's all ways of using their psychology. He's really good at it. But when he can't argue with someone, he starts screaming and shouting, wanting to beat them up.
Sorry, can I just confirm? Mark Powell, I have already confirmed on several occasions I have seen the checks. The police presented the checks to me at my home, and we went through them. I signed for seeing the checks, and we went through the disclosure. It's never changed. That's fact. So instead of saying it's being contradicted, it's not contradicted. It's always been said, I'd seen the checks when the police visited me at my home.
And also the lady who made the allegation, hers is recorded from the police station to her, from a policewoman, and she specifically asked her the same question 2 or 3 times to get it right. And it names him, what he's done, what they think a significant risk to women and children for what he's done. So when you get no further action, they still keep that. It's called the blue flag, the red flag, you're on. So the social services keep it as well, and it can tell you if you're a paedophile, or if you're in the clearers, or if you've been beating women up, or any violence at home. The domestic violence one, the other one's the sexual one, and that's kept by the police forever. But they can't give you paperwork. They come to your house and read it out to you. But because the COVID was on, the lady who asked about this allegation, they read it out to her over the phone, and it was recorded, and that's how we know 100%. So I know that on my words, I know that 100%. John's telling the 100% truth. I wouldn't have on the show if he was lying, and I know the lad.
What I think Mark Powell's confusing is Decker's previously gone on about the fact that he goes, you've seen my checks.
Yeah.
I've already addressed it at the beginning, Mark, if you missed it.
Yeah.
But the checks he refers to is the checks he presented to me at the beginning of my working relationship with him. The working relationship was a basic DBS check, a non-disclosure letter from the police that his brother has, and confirmation from a child welfare officer at the boxing club that he participates and trains at. They're not, if you actually go into the whole enhanced DBS process, Clare's law and Sarah's law, they are not the actual checks that were necessary for me to have been satisfied, because they didn't show enough information. So only if he'd have presented me with an enhanced DBS or a full acro check would I have actually had the right information. Because, and Matt Powell, go and have a look at a basic DBS. A basic DBS, and I've gone into this in a lot of information to make sure I've now understood it, is that it only shows basic information relating to current offences. It doesn't show you anything to do with the allegations, cautions, and convictions historically, or of a nature that may deem somebody adverse to the job they're applying for, or a risk to vulnerable people.
The no further action one is where you get no further action. What we've been for patrolling things like that, there's no further action with no proof whatsoever, so they don't keep that. But if it's to do with sexual assault on people, they still keep the no further action. But when you've got no further action 1, no further action 2, no further action 3, no further action, all sexual offences, and they're all serious rapes and stuff like that, what offences have been said. When you've got all them together, all them different ones, then that's when the police have to deem them a significant risk to the people. I mean, you get a lot of these people where they intimidate them, they don't turn up a court. Women have been raped, or men have been raped, or whatever. They don't go because they're embarrassed about it. So there's loads of ways to get off with it, these people, or they apply them with drugs and drink. So were you drinking that night? Were you on drugs? Both get dropped again, so there's no further action. But it doesn't even say that people have been raped, haven't been raped. They're telling the truth, but sometimes they get off on a technicality.
Yeah, and, you know, the one thing I will say is people who say that it's not a conviction, they're allegations, then that's not fair to a victim. Because ultimately what you're suggesting is that a victim is a liar. And it's no wonder victims don't come forward in sexual abuse and sexual assault cases, because they're afraid of that stigma of being branded a liar. And to continue sort of going down that route, saying, well, it was NFA, there's such a difficult area of law to prove, because essentially it's a 50-50. You know, you've got 2 adults, let's say, on that have engaged in some form of in relationship, discussion, or whatever. But just because they weren't able to prove it doesn't mean it didn't happen. You know, an allegation means that something happened. We've just not been able to prove or disprove who was telling the truth.
Yeah.
And it's not fair to say it was an allegation, so it didn't happen, because something happened for that allegation to have been raised. And yeah, I understand that sometimes people will lie on their allegations and they'll make fake allegations up. And people that do that are just as bad as perpetrators themselves in my eyes, because they're trying to get somebody convicted for an offence that they've never done.
Yeah, it's very wicked. I just want to say, when someone says, I'm going to do a road moat, which he has stated on several times, I'm going to do a road moat, I'm going to get a gun, I'm going to do this, and then the police don't do nothing about it, like they did with road moat and he killed 3 people. This is sometimes the police are stepping back too much for me. It should be, when people are saying things like that, I'm going to do a road moat, and they're having a breakdown, that he's saying he's got a mental health, and he's been sectioned. Surely he should be given a psychological evaluation to see if he's deemed to be safe to the public and safe to himself and his family.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the police, for me, if he was to do something like that after saying things like that online, that's a significant failing in safeguarding by the police and negligence.
Exactly. Yeah, they did the same road walk because he said he was coming out, he was going to do this, his girlfriend, and he shot an innocent policeman, shot another lad, then he killed himself. So all that could have been stopped if they just stopped him on a gate arrest, given him a psychological evaluation, realised he was mentally ill at the time, sectioned him, got him better, then 3 people will be still alive. So does he have to do something crazy before they do something?
Well, this is it. I mean, what extent do they want to go to? You know, what do they want him to do? Do they want him, you know, to carry out some form of violence, which, you know, seriously hurts or kills someone before they take action?
Yeah.
People asking us if we can play it, because he's going live in 5 minutes. People asking if we can play it live on our channel. I get used to him.
Yeah. What live?
We've got Derek Eggie's live video.
Oh, yeah.
Keep you, John.
Yeah. 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 Is he going on tonight, Dickies?
Yeah.
All right, then we'll come off just now, John. We don't want to spoil his thunder. But John, is there anything you want to say before we go?
No, I mean, what I'd like to do is just reiterate what I said on Steve's podcast last night. Is, you know, obviously there are ongoing investigations. If you know, we can sort of refrain from speculating and discussing ongoing investigations and let, you know, justice take its course. You know, whether he's found guilty or not guilty, that's out of our hands. It's down to, you know, the police and the CPS to look at that. And, you know, let's obviously make sure that we don't do anything to detriment it, which is why, you know, I wasn't willing to talk about certain things last night or today. It's, you know, it's just important that we respect what people have gone through.
Yes.
And depending on how long Peggy's live is, maybe you and Brian could link up again after it.
Yeah, possibly. I'd have to see what time, just because I'm not sure what I'll be up to at that point.
Yeah.
That's if you're still alive. Yeah. Yeah. So can we just leave it there, John? Is that okay, mate?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the show, John. I'm going to be seeing you a lot more of John. He's a great guy. What this guy says is the truth. He's a proper diamond, and he's a great guy. So thanks very much, John, for joining the show, please.
Cheers, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Steve's going to come on. Brilliant.
What now?
After
this, well, that'd be good. Steve Bear's going to come on with us tonight.
So shall I put you and Steve on now to carry on talking up? After Steve, before Steve?
After the thing,
Yeah. Oh, great. So Brian and Steve Rafe will be on after Eggie's been on.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
okay then. Okay, can you get John off here? I'm going to John, I'm not clever like you. Oh, John,
cheers.
2 weeks later. Thanks very much. God bless, brother.
See you later.
Cheers. Take care.